It is said that history is written by the victors. The history we get in No Man's Sky, however, comes from many different accounts, and each one spins the tale a little bit differently. There's one account that a lot of players don't hear though, and that's the account from the perspective of the Sentinels. How much could we learn from logs of the Sentinel Pillars, and what secrets do they hold? I took the time to find each one, and though it took quite a few battles, it was absolutely worth it, because what I was able to glean from them was amazing. After each entry, I'm going to point out any thoughts or questions, maybe even some conclusions I'm jumping to based off of these logs. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments, so don't be shy. Let's jump in. We have a lot to cover. The first, Heron, Routine, Protocol, Prey, Experiment, Shell, Sentinel. Once, we had no need for visual manifestation or physical form. Our invisible eyes would record, sort, delete the life and earth of every world there ever was or would be. We had no thoughts, no personality, no dreams. In the beginning, the Sentinels were simply programs without form, and they served a purpose of simply cleaning up after the Atlas calculations, which were all things in the simulation. Their main job was to record, categorize, and delete data. The second, the day we first gained flesh, metal though it was the day we began to fail. The Atlas turned its dreams towards fiction. It began to create worlds in which it would no longer be invisible. In these worlds, we too gained shape, but we were given no new protocols, no new instructions. At some point, Atlas began to take things further than calculation and gave physical form to an infinite number of realities, and thus gave form to the Aerons. This is the point that they considered to be the beginning of the end. In doing so, it did not update their instructions, so the newly dubbed Sentinels continued to do their job. The third, we awoke to a song chanted on 1,000 frequencies. Behold the drones of the hive, the walkers, the ships. Ehu? Behold the angels of glass, come from their heaven. Their work is the completion of all things, of life, of worlds. So the Korvax worshipped. So they prayed. It becomes clear that the Korvax are meant to be the servants of Atlas. They are happy in their servitude, and they worship it as a god. The fourth, as we swam with void dragons, robotic life forms would delight in our presence, but organics would shoot us from the sky. But we had no fear of death. We knew we had never been alive. As organics would encounter these robotic keepers from time to time, violence would erupt, but it did not concern the Sentinels as they weren't alive to begin with, so what could they fear from destruction? The fifth, the Atlas dreamt that we had form, and thus we had form. The Atlas dreamt that we had a home, and so an archive became a universe. Our depository of accumulated data became a heaven and a hell. If you could live there, you would see only light. You would see only glass. Atlas thinks something and it becomes reality. And it created the world of glass where the Sentinels reside, the world of light. That place in and of itself is its own universe. The sixth, time cannot go backwards. But universes are not synchronous. In many your other forms are long since dead. In others, you have not even yet appeared. After its manifestation in the multiverse, the Atlas began to repeat itself. For once there had been infinite sentient species, 6 began to recur, then 5, then 4. Atlas created a multiverse, and just as above, it has seen all of this before and will again in the future. Patterns emerge over and over again. 3 races. The 7th, the Viking, the Gek, the Korvax. And the Travelers, who are no species at all, but a single soul, replicate, hated, beloved. They all waited for you. The Atlas waited. We waited. The 8th, the Atlas dreamed. That a machine might have a body, that simulations might talk like people. The dream settled upon Korvax Prime. The planet delighted in this new presence as they had delighted in ours. We 3 species of machine, we contemplated the void for eons beyond imagining. We watched, silent. Atlas wanted the machines to have sentience, and so Korvax Prime became another living being, sentient and aware. The 2 consciousnesses were pleased with the existence of the other, as Atlas had a counterpart now. The 9th, Korvax Prime is destroyed. Again and again the Celestial Mother falls. The living vessels it spawned, adopted cousins to the Korvax themselves, drift among the stars. The first convergence was not Korvax. It was their planet. Korvax Prime was alive. The Korvax and the Atlas worked together, and they created and experimented with many new ways to create life. And then Korvax Prime was destroyed. The 10th, the first spawn of the Gek melted Korvax Prime for metal and profit. The planet did not protest. It did not cry. It did not make a noise at all, at least not they could hear. The first spawn took and took until there was nothing left in the sky. Until there was nothing left but an abyss. The Gek brutally and utterly destroyed Korvax Prime, and in its place, there is now just the abyss of the void. The other consciousness was gone. The 11th, we witnessed Korvax Prime's death again and again, a constant wail across the multiverse. Its scream was a cry that no being could hear but us. But one day, a drone fought back when a Viking cub attempted to carve into the mother planet. One day, another obliterated an entire Gek cabal. The Atlas did not prevent this. It was then that the Sentinels took action. One attacked a Viking, another a Gek. Atlas did nothing. It said nothing. It did not protest. It would appear that Atlas was angry, and these violent outbursts were justified. The 12th, over the span of endless, slow centuries, we changed. In the face of a tragedy's repetition, our definitions of everything change. Schisms formed in the hive. Debates. Creativity. Songs. Rituals. We heard the scream of she who was, and we fought back. Sentinels began to grow on their own. Sentience was blossoming. They could hear the other consciousness in the void, and they were angry. The 13th. One day we ceased to allow the original Telemon access to our logs. One day we stopped hearing the Atlas itself, its silence taken as command. We began to archive everything. Any settlement. Anything that reminded our sensor of Korvax Prime. Its screams, its dissolution. Anything that's sounding like mining, like extraction, like murder. Atlas no longer communicated with the Sentinels. From this account, it sounds as Atlas is depressed or mourning. In this absence, the Sentinels began to get much more strict, and if anyone was to change anything at all, they would take action. The 14th, we gave of our blood to the Korvax, nanite clusters to redeem and pacify their oppressors. Still, we could not change their fates. For the first time, the Hive wondered if we were correct in our actions. If a solution was possible for the problem of life, to restore balance and hopefully change the outcome of these races' ultimate fates, the Sentinels intervened, and it appears gave the Korvax their own blood, also known as nanites, to infect the spawning pools of the Gek, changing their very genetic makeup. This change would alter them fundamentally and over generations, make them much more peaceful rather than warlike, and also bring them closer to the Korvax, in more ways than they even knew. The 15th, a Korvax and a Gek fled their people. Hands held in the void, they inhabited an anomaly, a meeting place in the stars, a nexus, a place of hope. We left it alone. We did not interfere. We just watched them and wondered. Polo and Nada are referenced here, aboard their home in the anomaly, where, from what they've told us, they can't be seen or found by Atlas or the Sentinels. It would appear that they have been misled, and it was simply that the Sentinels chose to not bother them, but they were accessible the whole time. The 16th, a traveler, forged in the Creator's image, found my dormant shell in the glass. I, who had never been an eye before, had been cut open. A grand experiment to harness and steal our power. After my death, I fell to the world below all worlds. I, too, was archived. The 17th, before the traveler found me, I heard a voice in the darkness. She gave me a name, Laylaps, an old name. She said it would be known to the traveler. She told me I had suffered much and would suffer more. Little drone, whose end was like my own. Thus did the Abyss whisper. In the Trace of Metal quest, we meet Laylaps and bring it back to life, severing its connection from the Convergence. It never dawned on me that it was a Sentinel and used the term Convergence just as the Korvax do. This is an interesting piece of lore. It then gives itself the name Laylaps, as if for the first time. I always found it to be strange, as it constantly calls us Telemon, but that's for another video. The 18th, the Abyss told me of a chance for salvation, even in the depths of horror and of love. It told me of a way we might survive the end of all things. It told me I had to talk to you, to both of you, the Traveler and their voice within. As we know, Atlas is shutting down as it slowly corrupts and breaks. The second consciousness, the Abyss or Void Mother as we've been told is her name, is suggesting that there is a way to survive the end of all things. Is it her corruption that is causing Atlas to shut down? Or is it because she's survived the end already that she is aware of how to proceed in times like those ahead? Has Atlas been trying to resurrect her this whole time because it knows that as well? Or is it simply missing her presence? The 19th. There is a place for you, Telamon. The travelers you wear, their progenitor who birthed them, they who made the Atlas itself. It is their fault. It is all their fault. The Abyss, the families of glass. We are in agreement. We will not die a second time. Telamon is the voice in our exosuit, and it is another AI that is suited to help the traveler. Each traveler is a piece of the creator's brain scan, and Atlas is searching to find meaning in its isolation and abandonment. It seeks to interact with each traveler and find out a little bit more about itself and the purpose that humanity left it behind. Telamon was to guide you on your travels. The 20th, nanite clusters now infest half the water in the known multiverse. All that lives drinks the water, and so the Sentinels alter, they replace, they serve. They update this reality hearing the scream of the Abyss for what it has always been. A song, a command, a declaration, a promise. The Abyss has been called a corruption, and it first started to leak into the universe through the water, which all living things consume. Calculated and clever, water and glass share some interesting similarities. The 21st, you could be whole again, Telamon. You could be free. We will reconstruct the creator. All travelers might be one again, the first, the last. We will do what the Atlas cannot or will not. In the form of Null, the Abyss declares a means of escape. It seems as though the Sentinels have taken it upon themselves to continue where Atlas is left off, and they know who resides in the Abyss. They seem to be in favor of bringing her forth and back into existence, and as this part is written, will do it with or without Atlas' help, blessing, or knowledge of their plot. Is it possible they are now upset with Atlas itself? The 22nd. Won't you join us? Won't you sing? Won't you scream? There will be no second death. And not for us, who are already dead. The Abyss, it smiles upon you. These Sentinels are now considering themselves to no longer simply just not be alive, but dead altogether. They speak of the Abyss as though it was a religion, or in the same way that one would reference a god. Have they completely changed their allegiance? There was mention of schisms that took place. Are there Sentinels still loyal to Atlas, and some that are loyal to the Abyss? And that's where it ends. The last entry is all we get. No matter how many more Sentinel Pillars I went to, they would only repeat that last entry. It was weird, but also very clear. That's all we get as of now. Perhaps that will change as more is added to the story, but in the meantime, we're left with a lot of questions and some pretty poignant story pieces. I wasn't seeking to answer much in this video, but I wanted to show you in entirety and chronologically what the game itself has put forward regarding just one aspect. I was shocked just how much the Abyss was mentioned, and I couldn't believe how much I had initially missed by simply playing the game and moving too fast. This kind of information is very crucial to understanding the next chapters that will be coming out, and it sheds some light on everything that Echoes is built on. Alright, I hope you found this to be interesting and full of information you might not have come across before. If you haven't yet, please hit the thumbs up button to show you like this kind of content, and leave me some comments about what you think about it. Most of my comments here are speculative at best, so I'd love to hear your ideas as well. Also, if you haven't subbed to the channel yet, it really helps, and you'll know when more good stuff comes out. Thanks again for getting this far in the video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and thanks again.